This is a demonstration of problem M434A, computing product cost in an ABC system. Oscar Inc. manufactures bookcases and uses an activity-based costing system. Oscar's activity areas and related data follow, and they give us the three activities of materials handling, assembly, and finishing, the budgeted cost of those three activities, their allocation base, and then the predetermined overhead allocation rate to use. Then the problem states that Oscar produced two styles of bookcases in October, the standard bookcase and an unfinished bookcase, which has fewer parts and requires no finishing. The totals for quantities, direct materials, cost, and other data follow, and we can see where they gave us for standard and unfinished bookcases the number of units they produced, total direct materials cost, direct labor cost, total number of parts, and total assembling direct labor hours. In the first part of the problem, it asks us to compute the manufacturing product cost per unit for each type of bookcase. So the first thing we're going to do is to compute the amount of allocated manufacturing overhead costs for each bookcase. They gave us in the problem the predetermined overhead allocation rate. So for the materials handling, it would be $1 per part. It's $17 per direct labor hour for assembly, and it's $4.50 per finished unit for finishing. So that amount, those predetermined rates, we're going to multiply by the actual quantity of the overhead base. So we see that for the standard bookcase, we had 28,000 parts that were used. So that will be that number. And then we see that they had 10,500 direct labor hours in assembly, and we know that they actually completed 7,000 units for the finishing. So when we multiply the rate by the actual quantity, we get the allocated manufacturing overhead costs for each of those three activities, and then we add those three together to get the total manufacturing overhead costs. So that was for the standard bookcases. So now we're going to do the same thing for the unfinished bookcases. So our rates again are $1 per part for materials handling, $17 per direct labor hour for assembly, and $4.50 per finished unit. And we see that we had total number of parts for the unfinished bookcases of 22,500. We had 7,500 total assembling direct labor hours, and we did not finish any of these units. They were unfinished bookcases. So we only have materials handling and assembly manufacturing overhead to add together to get total manufacturing overhead cost. Next, we're going to compute the total product cost and then divide it by the number of units produced to get the manufacturing product cost per unit. So we go back over to our table and we see that we had $91,000 in direct materials costs for the standard bookcases, and we had $82,500 in material costs for the unfinished bookcases. Our total direct labor cost for the standard bookcases was $105,000, and it was $75,000 for the unfinished bookcases. And then we'll go back up and get our manufacturing overhead cost, which was $238,000 for the standard bookcases and $150,000 for the unfinished bookcases. So now we have our total manufacturing product cost, and we're going to divide that by the actual number of units we produced, which we were given as 7,000 for the standard bookcases and 7,500 for the unfinished bookcases. So that gives us a $62 per standard bookcase for manufacturing product cost and $41 per bookcase in manufacturing cost for the unfinished bookcases. Next, in requirement 2, it says, suppose that the pre-manufacturing activities such as product design were assigned to the standard bookcase at $5 each and to the unfinished bookcases at $3 each. Similar analyses were conducted on post-manufacturing activities such as distribution, marketing, and customer service, and the post-manufacturing costs were $20 per standard bookcase and $18 per unfinished bookcase, and now they want us to compute the full product cost per unit. So they gave us the pre-manufacturing cost for the standard bookcases was $5 and $3 for the unfinished bookcases. We computed the manufacturing cost per unit in this part of the problem, so it was $62 for the standard bookcase and $41 for the unfinished bookcases. The post-manufacturing costs were $20 for the standard bookcase and $18 for the unfinished bookcases. So our total cost for our standard bookcases were $87 and they were $62 for the unfinished bookcases. In part 3 it says which product costs are reported to the external financial statements. So if you remember, only the manufacturing product costs are included in inventory on the balance sheet and cost of goods sold on the income statement. So only these costs would be included that would go out to the users of the financial statements. But then it asks which costs are used for management decision making. Well, full product costs would be used for management decision making, and those would include both those pre and post manufacturing activities that are expensed when they're incurred. So those are just going to be the period cost. And then in requirement 4 it says what price should Oscar's management set for unfinished bookcases to earn a net profit of $19 per bookcase. So they should use the full product cost, which is $62 for the unfinished bookcase. And so we would take that and we would add the $19 to that, which is the amount of profit they want to make, and that would give us a sales price per unit for the unfinished bookcases of $81. And that is the conclusion of the demonstration for problem M434A.